This is the Breakaway. To those watching on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, welcome along. Julien Alaphilippe is back in yellow, pulling the maillot jaune on his jersey, on his shoulders once again, delighting the French fans on the eve of La Fête Nationale Bastille Day. Thomas again celebrating the stage win, and we have our own fete going on here in the studio. Dan Lloyd and Matt Stevens to go through the day's remarkable action. First, we need to show you the general classification because it is all change. Alaphilippe back in yellow. Ciccone losing the maillot jaune and now 23 seconds back. Thibaut Pinot now in third, 53 seconds off the lead. Geraint Thomas is fifth, 19 seconds behind the Frenchman. He still has a 4-second advantage, though, over Egan Bernal. And just to run you through the rest of that top 10, Kruijswijk, Iran, Fulsang and Buchmann are all within 20 seconds of each other. Matt, that makes for a tasty old top 10, doesn't it?
It does, but what a feast of bike racing. What an amazing stage. We knew there was pretty much going to be a breakaway early on, holding at 3 or 4 minutes, and then the race at the end just exploded. I mean, you've got to doff your cap, not just to the organisers for creating this wonderful course that we've had so far this year, but the way it's been ridden. It ended up, you know, a GC battle at the end. None of us really predicted that. We knew there was the potential for that to happen, but the way that Alaphilippe showed his hunger for the yellow jersey today was impressive, and that's some of the best bike racing I've seen in a very, very long time. You've got to doff your cap as well to, you know, the rider who held out all the way to the end. He's got that ridiculous engine of his.
Thomas again.
Thomas again, thank you very much for helping me out there.
I was going to leave him.
I noticed that, leaving him dangling. I thought, no, I'm not going to do that to Matt.
I asked him his favourite nut at the start today, and obviously that nut fueled him well. But no, amazing stage. I mean, I was just blown away by it. It was a... I think it was a... Oh, no, I've forgotten.
Bringing you all the key information. Dan...
Yeah.
For a lot of that stage, we were sitting and watching it and thinking, oh dear, we've overhyped this stage a little bit. It hasn't really delivered what we'd hoped for. And then in the last 30 kilometres, it just exploded.
It did. I mean, it's one of those things where it looked like not a whole lot was happening, but when you saw how reduced that group was at the front, even with 50 Ks to go, you know, from a peloton of 170 or so riders, we were already down to 70 or 80, and some decent riders getting dropped from it. It was a really solid old day in the saddle for everyone. We saw poor old Caleb Ewan and Groenewegen struggling very early on in the stage as well. They would have had a long day out. I'm not sure whether Alfredo got through to the finish. He was dropped early on after sickness as well, but that was a tough day in the saddle. Although we might want attacks earlier, they're not going to come when teams like Astana and EF Education First are riding that hard. There's just no point in attacking, but in the end we had a brilliant stage in those last couple of climbs.
Matt, what was the atmosphere like on the finish line? Because as a 1, 2, 3, it wouldn't get much more popular than that at the Tour de France. Thomas again, Thibaut Pinot, Julien Alaphilippe.
I mean, when De Gent crossed the line, I mean, all I could do was hear. We couldn't get a signal. All I could do was hear, and there's a lot of Belgian fans leaping around. Immediately I knew that De Gent had crossed the line in first place, and then Alaphilippe came across. There was another big cheer. They were completely mobbed. And then the other riders came through just a few seconds later, and they looked completely and utterly spent. I spoke to Stephen Kruijswijk. He looked hollowed out. I just see the riders going by. Geraint, of course, had made an amazing effort. They looked as if, rather than just a hilly stage, they'd actually finished on a mountaintop finish. I mean, they were absolutely drained. And when you look at the class in that final group, they really did battle today.
Which makes De Gent's ride even more impressive.
Amazing,
when you've got riders that have been mainly sat in the whole way, and they're on their knees at the finish, and De Gent's there on the front on his own. I
mean, we were talking, weren't we, with about 15k to go, just when De Gent opened it up and left De Marchi for dead. It was as if he had a different gear. And I think I said to you, Dan, will De Gent find the Thomas De Gent gear? And he found it, but a remarkable effort. And just the way that we saw Pinot, and in particular Alaphilippe, attack that descent, taking risks. And if you want to win stages in the Tour de France, if you want to get the maillot jaune, you have to take risks as well. And we saw that, and that just made for a wonderful finale. But yeah, hats off to Thomas again for holding on, but only 6 seconds in the end. But that was probably one of his best victories of his career, without a shadow of a doubt.
How much do you think the French Giro were balancing those risks against the potential rewards, Dan? Because Thibaut Pinot will have known that he could ride closer to the overall yellow, and Alaphilippe will have known that he could take that yellow jersey on his back once again heading into Bastille Day. Do you think they left a little bit in reserve just to be on the safe side?
I think Pinot might have backed off on a few of the corners because he's playing the long game. I don't think it even comes into Julien Alaphilippe's mentality to not take risks. He just loves racing a bike. bike, and he was determined to get back into the yellow jersey at all costs, basically. He would have been getting time checks from the team car, but you never know whether to believe them or not, based on past experience when I've been at the front of a Tour de France stage. But yeah, they're sometimes not very accurate, so he would have just been gunning it all the way to the finish line, which is probably why Pinot got the better of him at the finish line. Normally, he wouldn't have been out-sprinted by Pinot.
Matt, Julien Alaphilippe is one of these riders who get everyone excited, French fans in particular, and we've had tweets in over the course of the first week saying, could Julien Alaphilippe be a GC contender? Could this in any way, given that it is such a medium mountain heavy Tour de France, could it in any way be a year for Julien Alaphilippe, or is that just fanciful?
I don't know. Do you know what? Carlton Kirby a couple of years ago put a bet on, surprisingly, on Alaphilippe winning the Tour de France, 1,000 to 1. I bet his odds are a lot shorter now. I mean, we don't know, but as Dan said, he's unafraid. He's attacking. He was in 6 seconds of the jersey. There was an opportunity today. He's seized it. Well, he's got 11 wins this year. At the moment, Alaphilippe, whether he wins the Tour de France or not, for me, is the saviour of French cycling right now. He rides with such verve, such swagger. He rides in a very old-fashioned way, like the Tour de France of yesteryear. I mean, he rides kind of with a panache that's rarely seen. But who knows? I don't know what you think, Dan. I mean, maybe. I mean, what is he, 27, 28? Who knows?
Well, I wouldn't discount it in the future. I don't see it at all this year. I mean, I know I keep repeating myself about these mountains that go over 2,000 metres, but it's just a different beast. And you know, the fact that he won a sprint stage at Tirreno earlier this year, it just shows you he's got that fast twitch stuff as well. And when you've got that, it's very hard to do the climbs that are an hour to an hour and a half long. You know, that last climb of the Tour de France this year is 33 kilometres long. It's crazy. It's not one like today where it's, you know, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 15-minute climbs, and then you get to recover. Once it gets to that period of, you know, riding at a consistent power, it's a very different beast, and I still don't see him being there, but I might well be proven wrong.
So one of the riders we would expect to thrive in those longer, harder climbs, the more traditional Tour de France climbs, if you like, Vincenzo Nibali, didn't fare too well today. I don't know if you got to watch much of it, Matt, being at your vantage point, but he lost a significant chunk of time today. Yeah,
I did actually see him just drop off the back. I think it was still about 23, 24k to go, and maybe the penultimate categorised climb. That, to me, was a big surprise. But again, he was going for the overall in the Giro d'Italia. I had him down as a bit of a dark horse, but having shipped that time today, yeah, I don't think he's going to be a threat overall. I don't think he can overturn that deficit now, but I think he'll rest up for a few stages, and it wouldn't be surprise me if he took a stage win later in the race.
Good dark horse out, man. That's won all 3 Grand Tours before. I've got a sneaky feeling.
Well, he would be a dark horse now, Dan, in Matt's defence.
No, I know what you mean, because you know, after you've been for the Giro d'Italia, you're not going to be at 100% come the Tour de France. He might have been hoping, and that's what he did this first week. Just saw how his legs were, and today I think he's been, you know, he's seen that they're not where they need to be if he wants to be a GC contender, so he might as well aim for something else.
He might as well aim for something else, and he did say that he was coming into this race to either go for GC or the stage wins. He thought he might have a clear indication in stage 6. It's taken until stage 8. But what does Vincenzo Nibali need to do to be allowed to go on the attack? Because a rider of his aggression, a rider of his potential danger, I would imagine would need to drop an awful lot more time yet to be given any kind of leeway.
We've seen when he won the Giro a couple of years ago, and you know, you turn the race on its head, and what was it, 3 minutes 45 deficit he closed to Chavez. At the moment, I don't know what he shipped today. I think it was a couple of minutes, minute and a half. You wouldn't want to let Vincenzo Nibali on a high mountain stage go early. Very, very dangerous indeed. So at the moment, I think he's going to need to ship another 10 minutes or so before any of the GC riders will rest easy and let him go up the road personally.
Ironically, I think a lot of us will be cheering Vincenzo Nibali on to lose an awful lot more time, because if he starts to attack, boy, that makes for exciting racing, doesn't it? Well, one rider who lost the yellow jersey today still made it to the podium all the same, because Giulio Ciccone keeps the white jersey for the best young rider, and he has been talking to Laura Messiger.
Okay, Giulio, today you changed the yellow for the white jersey, but it's still been a good Tour de France for you.
Yeah, for sure. Today was a very hard stage, and Alaphilippe was very, very strong in this final. But I'm very happy for my condition, and nothing. I would like to thank all my teammates, and tomorrow will be another hard stage. The tour is still long, so we will see.
It's not something that we see very often, a young rider like you doing the Giro D'Italia and then the Tour de France and being successful in both. So how came you decided to come to the Tour this year?
I don't know. I'm here only for the experience, but now I still again in a white jersey. So tomorrow, for sure, I would need to keep the jersey.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Dan, he's understandably a little bit disappointed looking. He was in yellow at the start of the day. But given the season he has had, given the fact that he's come off a Giro D'Italia in which he won King of the Mountains, he will be, when he's had a bit of time to look back at the end of this Tour de France, remarkably proud of his performances as it stands right now, even.
Yeah, and also seeing the zeros on his new contract that he signed a couple of days ago. I mean, the thing is, he will be disappointed, but... You know, he couldn't in his wildest dreams have thought he's going to go into the yellow jersey here at the Tour de France when he came along. He's primarily here to support Richie Porte. He's ended up the road in the yellow jersey. He's still got white. There really isn't much for him to complain about at the moment, even though right now he'll probably be a little bit disappointed.
So, Matt, you spoke to Mikhail Kwiatkowski at the finish line. He seemed very calm, very measured from the interview, but you get a better sense when you're on that finish line and you see all the riders crossing the line before they've got their game face on for interviews. What sense did you pick up from Team Ineos as to how they felt about today's stage? Is that too difficult a question when you've got a bit of distance?
No, I think Michal was giving interviews in his native language first, and I kind of backed off, and then he was there for a couple of minutes, and I said, "Can I have an interview?" And he came across no problem at all. So actually, do you know what? He looked exhausted because that was a tough stage, but he was remarkably calm. Almost like a sort of, he was quite serene, in fact, and gave a really detailed analysis and insight into what happened and how they managed to get Geraint back and running. And it was just one of those racing incidents. But I felt there was a calmness. And when I spoke to Geraint at the start of the day, again, I don't know what it is about the team at the moment. They just seem exceptionally relaxed. That was a nasty incident. They were happy to speak to us about it. But thankfully, at the end of the day, Geraint is still in with a shout. He was still in the main group with Egan Bernal, and thankfully he wasn't injured at all. I saw him ride past. He wasn't speaking to us. He wanted to get back to the bus, have a bit of a debrief, dust himself down. But there's a real calmness, and that comes with being the Tour de France champion.
He did the right thing, Michal, as well, didn't he? He was the one that got off and did the pushing, which meant he didn't have to do the chasing, which is my own technique.
Have you been coaching him?
Whenever my leader had a problem, I'd just give him a wheel.
Are you in his ear?
Because first you look generous, and second you then can't do any of the chasing afterwards because you have to wait for your own.
Maybe he was exaggeratedly looking puffed out as well.
Yeah, the Dan Lloyd School of Bike Racing there. Can we read anything into the fact that Egan Bernal was riding by himself? Geraint Thomas had the full team around him. We don't know if that was the case immediately before the crash, but we know that last year, for example, Geraint Thomas was co-leader in name, but really, in reality, it was Chris Froome who had all of the team support. Do you think it's working the other way this year, Dan, or do we know that from the outside?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, they want to keep those two up there as long as they possibly can, so that they've got those two cars to play, or if one of them has any kind of problem or an off day or whatever that might be. So they won't ask Bernal, for example, to go back and help Geraint Thomas, but completely understandable that everybody else has, especially after what he did at La Planche de Belfi. Had he not been the best GC rider on that climb and lost 20 or 30 seconds or whatever it might have been, they might have kept a rider or two with Bernal and he left a couple with Geraint behind. But, I think he's proven that he's almost where he was last year, so he deserves that support.
Matt, do you get a sense of a hierarchy at the team bus that maybe we're not aware of from the outside? I
think I'll echo Dan's sentiment, really. Firstly, it would have been foolhardy for Egan Bernal to drop back. We've seen teams do that before, and they're all out the back. They didn't get back on. Luckily, they did. Egan clearly is allowed to ride for himself. But again, I was talking to Dave Brailsford at the start today, and he said that, Geraint has come into this race fresh. He was saying he wasn't carrying any residual fatigue that the other riders have got, but they looked at his numbers on the ascent of the Planche de Belfi, and they said there were better numbers than he was putting out last year. So I think there's been a bit of a swing, maybe to favour Geraint more. Ultimately, he's a few seconds ahead, and I think that display of strength, the sharpness, the crispness of that attack, and the way that nobody could follow, suggests that maybe, for the time being, Geraint is the #1 man in the team, but they're still going to look after the interest of Bernal and say, you're free to ride. That's my impression.
Gives us plenty to talk about and think about, doesn't it? I love it. Well, we have a party in store tomorrow. It is the national holiday, La Fête Nationale Bastille Day. Who will be celebrating at the end of it, though? Well, the tour organisers are surely hoping it would be Romain Bardet, because Stage 9's 190.5-kilometre route takes us to his hometown, Brioude. Another hilly stage, not quite as packed with climbing as today. 1 Category 1 early on and 2 Cat 3s. Another day that could be wide open for the Breakaway, the punchers. Well, if you missed any of today, you will have to catch up on the highlights tonight. That's at 8 o'clock on Eurosport 1. We will be back with Bastille Day action from 11:30. Again, that will be on Eurosport 1 tomorrow. And we'll have a new Bradley Wiggins podcast for you on Monday, which still gives you another day and a bit to catch his first one from the Tour de France. You can download and listen to that right now. Well, all of France will be getting ready to party tomorrow. We've started the party early, and Thomas de Gent will be the man celebrating tonight. We still have Bastille Day to come. Get yourselves recovered. You won't want to miss this party.